This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising Air Force and community leaders who seek to define the future. Learn powerful work and life tactics to tackle any challenge. I'm your host, Gabriel Gabrock Avila. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Gabrock back on the mic once again. Constant Elevation. Hope you guys are doing well in this April. I just finished taking my first test from my JCWS, and so fairly confident I passed. You only need an 80 to pass. It was like a bunch of multiple choice questions. One of them, actually, I missed one of the multiple choice questions, which pissed me off because I already had the notes and I knew exactly this is the one that I should have picked, but then I defaulted like, well, my study guide told me this, and I should have picked the one my gut went with. And then I'm waiting for the final grading for the open question, or whatever you want to call it, the question where you get to provide a bigger written answer. There's a better word for that. I'm blanking out right now, but I'm fairly confident I passed. So we're already on to the next one, and then we start a brand new block tomorrow. So we're going to see how that goes. But since I've been doing this in this education mode and training mode, I started to think about kind of like not the spectrum, but it's more like the cycle of learning skills. And so that's what I want to talk about this week. And because my first gut reaction was thinking about, well, I'm in school now, so the PME thing kind of, they go through every, for those who don't know, in the Air Force, at every given kind of rank, there's certain kind of schools that it's education things that they give you. You get to go back to basic military training, to your boot camp. I went to ROTC even before that, and so I'm learning some general skill sets to be a cadet or an Air Force officer. Went to field training, then eventually I went to Airman Basics, I forget what it was called, ABC, Airman's Basics course, whatever it is. It was like a school for lieutenants. They've since have done away with that school. Then I went to SOS as a captain, and then I went to a couple cyber schools in between there, Cyber 100, 200, 300. I went to my basic BCOT, so basic communications officer training. Then I went to squadron officer school, so I was a captain. And then that's when I think I went to Cyber 200 after that. And then I went to the Marine Corps Command and Staff College, and so I went to that as a major. And then after that, I went to Cyber 300. And then after that, I completed Air War College by correspondence. And then now I'm in JCWS virtually. So lots of education, lots of skill sets, lots of training, and they kind of go through those different kind of phases. And what I wanted to talk about this week is the relationship between training and then exercising. And so since I thought about exercising, my first thing was I started thinking about working out and fitness. And so I want to start the conversation off by first going over some of the things. When over at Revival Fitness, I actually teach a CrossFit 101 class, and I just take some of the material we learned from the level 1 seminar and reiterated that to newer athletes who may not know some of the methodology behind CrossFit, but there's some reasonings and some important foundational pieces of information that we cover, and I try and share that with the athletes. And so the first part I want to talk about is the GPP, so general physical preparedness. So CrossFit adopts that and has there's 10 GPP elements. I'm going to go over them a little bit, but they really fall into two kind of categories. They fall into training and practice. And so when you're developing your fitness skills, you have to have a deliberate approach to what are you doing today? Is it for training or is it for practice? And here's the difference between the two. So training, as far as training, is going to be activity that produces measurable change, okay? And so the GPP elements that go along with that would be cardio, stamina, strength, power, and speed. So it kind of makes sense, right? As far as it produces change. So the more you do push-ups, the actual stronger you're going to be able to do push-ups and chest exercise and that kind of stuff. The more you work at your running, you'll be able to run faster. If you do sprint drills, you do hill climbs or something like that. Those are all things that you can actually see the physical change. Measurable change in your performance, as well as your physical change, right? You're gonna end up getting slimmer, more strong, depending on what you're trying to do. You're trying to target certain things in order to get a bigger back or stronger legs. You're gonna physically change, and that's what training does, produces measurable change. Then there's going to be practice. So practice is where you improve your nervous system performance, okay? And those 5 elements of GPP include, it's shared. So power and speed are shared between fit training and practice. So power and speed are here again, but this one also includes coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy, okay? And so those are the ones that are underneath practice. And so what that means is it's improving, as in you can actually perform the job, the physical feat better, right? And so it's the whole thing of, if I practice doing these more often. So in other words, am I doing different kind of strength trainings, but I'm using them in different modalities, right? And so if I'm going to be able to do a pull-up, okay, I can do a pull-up, and then I can do a ring dip. If I can improve, I can do those two separate movements with more practice and be able to understand how to chain them together. I can then do a muscle up, right? Same thing theoretically. I know a lot of people out there, including myself, can't do them very well, as far as I can do a pull-up and I can do a ring dip, but it's very difficult to do a muscle up. But those are kind of things of like, just because you're strong doesn't mean you have the coordination in order to actually perform a certain physical movement. And so you have to get practice, and you have to understand the fundamentals, what are the basic foundations of that movement, and then how do you perform that thing together, right? And so you have to have deliberate practice of that, you know, practicing double unders. You have to have that physical, just kind of, you can't get better at double unders if you don't practice doing double unders. And so that doesn't necessarily have a physical, it's way more of a, to me, it's a mental kind of movement, to where like I just have to coordinate myself better, because you can't like muscle through. You can't, I've seen people try to muscle through and go really hard at a double under, but it's really unnecessary. You just got to get your coordination and timing correctly. So again, training and practice, those are two different, you know, complementary things that we have to do if you want to have a good physical fitness regime, right? So training, making sure there's consistency. This is really the benefit of strength cycles, as far as, hey, so we're going to deliberately make sure that we're going to have a squat cycle over the next like 8 weeks, right? You have a deliberate training regime in order to make and get yourself physically changed, physically stronger, or being able to do something faster. And then practice is where you get that's the benefit of doing CrossFit, is you get practice at a bunch of stuff, right? So the combination of movements, the combination of pushing, pulling, cardio, strength, all those kind of things are how, when you combine them together, that's where you get to see, wow, you are really good at everything, right? CrossFit is built to eliminate your physical weaknesses. And so it's just a thing of, you become a jack of all trades, because you get really good at a bunch of different, weightlifting, monostructural movement, as well as body control movements. So training and practice is what's going to be key when you're learning skill sets, and a good, why a really good, well-rounded program like CrossFit ends up becoming your fitness skill regime of choice. So now I started to think about like, well, do those same things, does training and practice, does that apply to my military skill sets as well? And I think they do. So the training really comes through education stuff, right? So my school going on now, but you think about like in the very beginning, it's first telling you basic kind of things, right? Your initial training. So how to become an officer, what are how does the military rank and structure work? Those kind of the customs and courtesy, some of the history stuff. It's very foundational but entry level concepts, because those things are important at that point in time. And then as you progress through your career, you start getting more training and more skill sets. So for the enlisted force, it's pretty easy. You can see 3, 5, 7 skill levels, right? There's a thing. Even your rank is a different method of showing your progression in training, because you have to demonstrate all of those kind of skills, and you've learned everything, and that's how you qualify there. And so training is just practical experience, understanding that you're probably going into in a safer environment to learn a concept, and then you'll get some practice reps, right? You'll be able to understand and educate yourself for some of the foundational stuff, and then making sure that you just kind of keep on building on top of that every single time. It's just like very similar to when you do a long squat cycle. The benefit is from doing the entire squat cycle. You can't just jump to week 7 or 8 and expect to get benefits. It's foundational. It keeps on building on top of each other. So you have to start at week 1 and follow through. The other side, so in the military side, we get all that training. So that's pretty straightforward. The other piece that's arguably a little bit more important, not more important, but just as important, is the exercise of it, right? And so like during military training exercises, this is where you're supposed to be. This is where you get to practice putting those trainings and those newly learned skill sets to use. So let's try and figure out how this works. How does my assigned function? Can I do the job I'm supposed to be doing? You get evaluated, especially in the exercises, you're gonna get like some kind of ranking score or whatever it is, but most of the time it's going to be, it's a test if you get tested. So I just took a test and I'm pretty sure I passed. And so that's that. Can you demonstrate, not only you're learning something, you actually have to demonstrate it. This was through the written word kind of piece, but you have to you can't just say, I know all these things. You actually have to apply it and understand it. And demonstrating that understanding is usually best through action, okay? And so that's like the practice on the physical side, right? It's my brain understanding like, okay, I just learned all these things, but let me put these into action. Can I coordinate and combine all of these skill sets that I've learned to be a good officer? Can I learn how to understand my job as a cyberspace operations officer, and then combine it with planning, combining it with leadership, combining it with people skills, combining it with communication? How do I get all those different skill sets and apply them? Because I learn them differently, but I have to, the power comes through that combination to make sure I'm being a good leader. And I only get that through exercise. So the more and more exposure you get to try and practice these things out there, you're gonna get them day to day going to work. But then you have to take advantage of those educational pieces to where maybe you relearn something maybe you forgot back in the day. Maybe you just got to reintroduce yourself like, oh yeah, I forgot about these foundations that I learned when I was a captain or something like that. They still apply now, they're good concepts, but how do I relook at those concepts now that I'm at a different place in my life? Same thing, it applies, I always think about like, 41-year-old Gabe cannot do the same physical stuff that young 25-year-old Gabe used to do, right? I used to be able to run like sub 6-minute miles without really thinking about it. I can't do that anymore, but I definitely can snatch more than I did from like 5-7 years ago. So it's just like one of those kind of things of where are you at right now? Reevaluate some of your core foundations, and then to make sure these are the things you have to be able to perform well, because those are just foundational stuff. And so I'm looking forward to just figuring out, this is where I'm really trying to dive into the education piece, because I want to relearn potentially and learn some new skill sets and new perspectives. So when I go back to work, I can actually be an even better officer, right? I'm working in a joint environment. I should take these joint concepts and apply them. That's the reason why I got picked to go through the school. And so it's not just about just kind of learning things and being book nerdy academia. It doesn't mean anything. Just like reading a bunch of men's health magazines or fitness stuff online is not going to mean shit if you don't actually do those things out there. And you have to try it. You have to understand that trial and error of trying to do things and seeing the things that work and don't work for you. Those are all important things to help you become a better leader. So I don't know if it's a clean parallel, and I don't even think about, I tend to think about my podcast episodes maybe for like a week or so. I took a good like 12 hours to think about this, because sometimes it's just kind of fire and forget. And I think it's, as I talk through it all, I have a better understanding of what I wanted to say. So your fitness skills and your military skills, I think there's definitely going to be some parallels between that, right? It's the whole training and exercising, learning some concepts, and it's a cycle. Learning some concepts, all right, cool, I understand how this is going to work. You practice it on your own, maybe with a coach or a mentor leader, and then you're going to be expected to be like, all right, cool, so let's see you try and do it out in the real world. All right, cool, I do this in class, I do this at work, and I can see it there. And then when it comes to game time, when it comes to an actual competition, and it comes to an actual, you're on the front lines or you're leading an operation, are you going to be able to use those skill sets you used in practice and apply them to game time? And arguably, people who have those kind of right mindsets can accomplish it on both. It takes a lot of hard work, and you're gonna always have to be going back. It's a cycle, so you will understand that you're gonna have to go back and learn and tighten up a couple things, but that's just the nature of the game. There's got probably some new concepts and new ways that you can go about doing things to help you be more efficient, and your goals and your perspective are just gonna be different, because you're gonna keep on going through life, and you're gonna have different goals and objectives you want to achieve, or that are expected of you to achieve. So you gotta stay flexible, gotta be agile about that, but like those core principles of training and exercising, I think for your skill sets, remain true throughout your cycle as a leader. So there you go. That's what this week's going to be about. I'm probably going to, actually this afternoon, I need to take Benjamin to soccer practice, because he needs to practice that, because he is applying all of his soccer skills and his lack of physical fitness this Sunday at his first soccer game. I can say that to his face because he's doing okay, but he probably could be better, but he's enjoying soccer, and I like taking him outside for an hour. I can see some sunlight. So guys, take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you again next week. Peace.